Hello guys, and welcome to your practice for your feet today. Freeing out the feet. It's going to feel wonderful. We're going to want a trigger ball. If you don't have a trigger ball, you can use rolled up towel, or you can put some pillows, some socks, and squidge them together to make a ball sort of shape. We will also want to have either a strap, you can use a stretchy band strap, or just a usual strap, a scarf or something, even leggings actually, yoga leggings work really well tied together, and you can use those. And we will want to have either a towel or a blanket, so grab one of those, and a stool or a chair, which I've placed at the top of the mat. So push it I can't speak today. Push it to the top of your mat, so that we're going to use that for the practice today quite a lot. So we will need that. And we're going to start our practice lying down on the back in a constructive rest pose, which will be really lovely. And we will enjoy working our wonderful feet. So once you've got all your props together, just pop them in the right places so that you don't have to worry about them for a moment. And we're going to come and lie down on our backs with the soles of the feet grounded into the earth, and just connect to the feet for a moment. What can you feel in this moment in time in your feet and ankles? What do you notice as you press your feet down softly into the earth? Where do they feel rooted in? Where do they feel spacious from the ground? Do you notice that you roll to one edge of the feet, or put pressure in the heel more than the toes? There's no right or wrong way, but just observing, for now, your feet. Now, sadly, we spend an awful lot of time with our feet in shoes. And most of our shoes are designed badly. They do not really support the feet the way that we're told they do. In fact, they hinder the movement of our feet, crush them into weird shapes, and then we wonder why we get discomfort in our feet or other areas of our bodies, as our feet are our foundation when we're standing, running, walking, for the rest of our body. So we want to free our feet today, exercise them, move them, connect with them, and just notice, so paying attention to what they feel like and how we may be able to increase our awareness of how we need to use our feet, which ways we may need to strengthen them or create more flexibility or mobility, and just generally pay attention to the sensations and their movements. We have 33 joints in each foot, 26 bones. That is quite a lot. So thinking about how they are designed for movement, and yet we put them into shoes that really restrict that. Or we walk on flat surfaces that don't allow the feet to undulate with the ground. So taking one more awareness of just the feet being here, nice and still and stable into the earth. Then picking the feet up and lifting them straight up to the sky. Now your knees can be bent, and I want you to look at your feet. People often say to me like, oh my God, feet are so weird, they're so ugly. No, they're not, they're incredible. Look at them. They're like hands on the bottom of your legs. So start to move your toes. Move your feet around, your ankles. Watch how they move. You might notice areas that feel stiff or areas that feel free. Maybe one foot feels different from the other. Look at how your feet move. Can you spread your toes really wide? Can you scrunch them up really small? Can you point, flex? What else can be done with the feet? So we've got invert, evert, rotation of the ankle, pointing and flexing, spreading of the toes, Loads of different movements we can make with the feet. And when you're doing this movement, you might start to think, gosh, it's quite tiring, moving the legs. And you can feel the muscles, calf muscles, tibialis anterior muscles, all these muscles having to activate in order to move the feet and ankles around. Good. And then we'll reground the feet back to the floor. Just take a moment here to like plonk them back down and let the weight of their feet just ground into the earth. And then inverting and everting the feet. So try not to make too much movement from the hips or the knees, but just rolling to the inner edge and outer edge. It's also supination, pronation, but invert, evert. So we're rolling slightly to the outside, inside of the feet. And you want to avoid, at the moment, opening up the hips as best you can. So just see if you've got movement in your feet. Now we need invert, evert in order to actually stabilize. So I think when you're balancing in a tree position, you've got that wobble. We need this wobble in order to find stability. So that kind of way of going, yeah, but it feels unstable, but actually we need it in order to find stability. Okay, then we can increase this. So we can roll the knees to the same side and just roll to the outer edge of one foot, inner edge of the other, and then swap and feel the movement of your feet. So the sensation as we roll from one edge to the other. Just notice what that feels like. It's like giving yourself a tiny little massage with the feet in the floor. Okay, a couple more. Just notice the sensations of the feet. Obviously, they're connected to the rest of the body, so, we're going to be feeling other areas of the body moving, but I want you to stay more focused on just your feet. Good, coming back to the center on the next breath, we'll push the feet down into the floor and lift the hips up into a bridge pose. Now this is not having to be a huge bridge position, but just enough that you can then feel the pressure of the feet pushing down into the earth, and you might start to experience muscles activating like thighs, glutes, even the back muscles maybe a little bit into areas that you feel you're gripping. And just notice how your feet land into the earth. Do you roll to the outer edge, inner edge? Are you pressing more into the heels than the toes? Do you turn out your feet? It's okay if you want to externally rotate your hips, that's fine, that's not wrong in this position. We don't always have to be dead parallel. You can widen your feet if you want a wider surface space in your bridge position. But just notice how you came up into bridge, and is there even distribution of weight in your feet or not? And we can often tell where we rub out our shoes by looking at the inside of our shoes. If you take that inner bit out and look at it, you can see where you press mostly into your shoes. So whether you rub out the right corner of your heel or the big toe area or the little toe. You can also see it by looking at the calluses on your feet as well. Good, one more breath. Hopefully you're feeling a little bit more warm in your glutes. We're going to slowly drop the bum back down. Hug the knees in and give the feet a little bit of a break. So you can just give them a little bit of a wiggle or just let them kind of flop. And we'll roll all the way up to a comfortable seated position. And if you do need to sit on your chair, you can. So we're going to just start to gently stimulate the nerves of the feet by little strokes, little tickles, little stimulating of the skin. So never underestimate the importance of touch for allowing the brain to connect the part of the body we want to move. So doing these like nice little kind of, think less about massaging, more about just kind of touching and stimulating. You need little circular motions, particularly around the ankles as well, because we want the ankles to wake up a little bit. So we're stimulating the motor cortex in our brain. So our brain is how we move, right? Not just our muscles. A signal gets sent to the brain to move the body from the motor neurons. So we really need to stimulate the part of the body that we want to move to connect the brain through our nerves. Good, and then we're going to swap and do the other foot and ankle. And just gentle little strokes, tickles, little wake-ups for our feet. Massages, but gently. Light touch is really, really important. It doesn't always have to be pressure and deep touch. It feels really nice just to wake up these areas, stimulate the skin and the nerves, allowing the motor neurons to wake up in our brains. Good. You can't really tickle yourself. If you can, that's amazing. But generally speaking, we know it's us that's touching, so you wouldn't want to do this on somebody else because it might tickle. Good. Let's take another breath. And then we're going to come onto the hands and the knees. My favourite ankle stretch. I say that about everything. This is my favourite. Just sitting back onto the heels. Now try and keep the big toe and the heel in one straight line for the first round. Now if the knees don't particularly like this, you can always come up to a kneeling position and use your stool or chair and stretch the foot forward like so, and then swap and we'll do the other side. So this is always an option. Or you can place something in between the knees like your rolled up towel in order to stretch out the fronts of the ankles. You can also bounce in and out of this. So I say bounce, maybe just gently rocking. So you can come forward and back, getting a little bit of a nice stretch into the ankles. So it feels quite nice. You can, if you think this is really easy and I sit like this all the time, begin to elevate one leg and hold, and maybe release and elevate the other and hold and release. You can also do both at the same time, either leaning back or using a bit of core strength, but try not to sickle the feet yet. So keep the big toes separated, and this is just round one. Good. Now, if you've done one foot, make sure you've done the other. So if you're doing one at a time, try and make sure you do both. You may notice straight away that you have differences on one ankle than the other ankle. There may be a tighter ankle that you're experiencing. Good, now we'll release. The second one we're going to do is the big toes are going to touch, and we're going to allow the heels to separate. So we're kind of what we think of as like the saddle, the sickling of the feet. A lot of ballet dancers do this. It's like the fish. I don't know why I know that. It's like creating pretty lines with their feet. So we can come back and forward again. So if you want a little bit less intensity, you want to come in and out, you can. You can also use your stool. This time it's a little bit more of a kind of almost like a broken ankle position. So you're pushing the toes down and the heel, like the heel out. Toes in, heel out, sorry. Or again, you can sit back. You might find that's enough. Or you can lift a leg and lower, lift the other, or do both. Now with the sickling of the feet, the stretch should have slightly changed, right? So rather than being straight on where you feel it straight down the front, this time we've slightly pushed the heel out, so it's going to come across the ankle joint, which feels, I think, really nice. So we've got that lovely stretch across our ankle, which I love it, feels great. I do a lot of running these days, so ankle stretching is really important. We think, we often think like with all this running, walking, want like stable feet. We need mobile feet in order to run, walk, sit. I promise you that. So this idea of like strapping our feet in so that they don't move is really actually not that good for our feet. Good, coming back out, so make sure you've done both sides. Last one is probably the most difficult to do in terms of posture. So the toes are going to turn out slightly, but keep the feet pointed. So we're not flexing the feet. This is a pointed foot sort of position. And we can come in and out. Now your toes are just slightly out, heels are slightly in. And if this feels uncomfortable on your knees, you can ditch it and not do it. You can also do this, remember, with the chair. So toes slightly out, heel slightly in, which comes across the ankle again in a different way. If you find it's quite nice to sit back and just enjoy it, you can just sit back and enjoy. I find this one much nicer to kind of come in and out of as I get that stretch across. It's a little bit weird, but just getting that three-way ankle stretch. Oh, yeah. One more. Remember, if you've done one foot, make sure you repeat and do the other leg. Good. Wonderful. Now we're going to do the toe tuck. Ding, ding, ding. So tuck the toes all the way under, especially the little toes. Little toes love to just poke out. So you want to tuck those little badgers under and sit back onto the heels. Now again, if you need a bit more space between the knees, you can pop the towel in between your knees or the blanket. You can also do this toe tuck kneeling, leaning on your your stool or chair. You can also do it with the foot forward, and you can actually do this one at a time. So sometimes people like to sit back on one foot and do one and then swap. It can be super killer. I really love it. I don't know why I like this so much, but I think it feels so nice. It's like, getting into the plantar fascia. So if you've ever experienced plantar fasciitis, it's very painful, it's very uncomfortable. So stretching out your fascia is a good thing for the body, stretching out that tension, that tightness in your feet. And I massage a lot of people's feet, being a Thai massage therapist. I touch feet a lot, I love feet. But a lot of people don't realise how tight their feet are. They're like, well, I don't really do anything with the feet. Yeah, so they get quite tight. One more breath before you hate me. And then we'll slowly release. Hands can come back down to the earth. You can give maybe the toes a tap. You can circle the ankles just to release the feet. Lovely. Good. And then we're going to come up to standing. Yay, all the way up onto our feet. And we're going to kind of practice this little coming up and down using the feet. So using the movement of the feet. So the first thing I want you to do is come into a nice forward fold, but you can soften your knees and have a little bit of a micro bend in your knees. If you need to use the stool here or the chair, that's what it's there for, so you don't have to come all the way down. So I want you to lift up onto the balls of the feet, slowly bend the knees and drop them down into the earth. Sink back to the heels. We'll come back forward with the hands, lift up the knees, press the heels back down and come back to your forward fold. And we'll repeat this again. Lift the heels up, slowly drop the knees down, sit back onto the heels. Bring the hands back down, lift the knees, drop the heels and forward fold. Now if you want to do this without hands so much, you can. Coming down, dropping, up and folding. A little bit more core control, a little bit more balance required. So have a little bit of a play with it. Couple more, doesn't have to be this quick. Doesn't have to be all the way down. Good, last time we come back to the forward fold, just pause here, maybe shake the head out, maybe wiggle the legs, maybe your feet are attached to those lovely legs of yours. And then we can curl up slowly, all the way up to a standing position, mountain pose. So we want to do a few exercises just to start to wake up the feet a little bit, but we're not going to do any jumping in this at all. So it's not going to be anything that's too intense on the knees or in the hips. So what we want to do here is keep the feet about parallel, and I just want you to raise up onto the balls of the feet, nice and high, and then slowly dropping the heels back down. And just notice what happens. Are you wobbling a lot? Lift for 2. Slow lower for 3, 2, 1. Find a point with your eyes to gaze at so that you have a little bit more focus. And just notice what the feet are doing. Do they flare out to the sides? Do they drop in together? What happens? Just notice. Are you spreading the toes out wide as you raise up onto the balls of the feet? Good. Slowly lower. Now we're going to practice pressing the big toes down and lifting the little foretoes up. So the smaller toes are lifting, big toes are pushing down. You should feel the muscles activating in your feet. We're then going to swap that. So little toes down, big toes up. And we're going to swap again. Big toe down, little toe up. You can even look at your feet, it can help. Swap, little toes down, big toes up. It's kind of like brain over body. Swap, big toes down, little toes up. And just keep going. Swapping, you can go faster. Swap, 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 swap. Noticing if it's easy, if it's challenging. You might want to pause with the toes up or the toes down. Having a play. See, we can get that kind of movement back into our feet. Couple more. Okay, then spreading your toes really, really, really wide. Spread them as wide as they can go and place the toes back down into the floor. Try coming up on the balls of the feet here with the toes super wide, and notice actually how much easier it is spreading your toes out. If you're going to stand up on your hands, you wouldn't crunch your hands up like this, would you? And try and stand on your hands. I mean, you want to do that as a challenge, but generally speaking, we'd spread out in order to go upside down on our hands. Same as when we're doing it on our feet. So try and crunch your toes up, squeeze them together, and then try and come up onto the balls of your feet. It's much harder, right? You can feel how much harder that actually is. This is one kind of for women, I suppose, to go when we wear stilettos and our feet are, or high shoes, our shoes squeeze the toes together into a point, and then we elevate. It's really hard to actually walk like that, and you can feel that when you just move your feet around in that sort of way, when you try and lift up and crunch your toes together, how challenging it actually is. Good, take the feet a little bit wider and then just invert, evert. So rocking in and out with the feet. So it's just moving in round and round, not the hips, keep the hips still, and just let the feet go in and out, in and out. Just waking up that movement. And you might notice you might have more invert than evert or vice versa, that's okay. And there's going to be movement obviously up into the hips, a little bit into the knees because they're all connected. Funny, eh? We're like one big connected wonderfulness. Now feet come together, hands can come to the hips. And we're going to do this as an ankle stretch, or ankle mobility. So we're going to take the knees one direction, bend them, round all the way to the other side, and back to straight legs. Try and keep the knees together and the feet fully grounded. We'll go 3 times to one direction. And another one, circling. Feel it into the ankles, and I straight away can already feel my left ankle's tighter. Go back the other way. Try and keep the knees together. And let this less be about the hips and more about the ankles. So hips are staying quite still. Feet are fully grounded into the floor as best they can be. Good. And then just shake out the legs. I'm telling you, my feet are already like, what? What are you doing to me? Good, so we're going to come up to the top of our mats. Make sure your stool or your chair is at the top. This is our trigger ball moment. If you do not own a trigger ball, a rolled up towel or a rolled up pair of socks or anything is equally as good, but I'm going to show you with the trigger ball. You can also use the spiky ones as well, which I really like for the stimulation. Oh, I'm throwing it. So you can use that one as well. It's a good job it bounces. But this one I'm going to show you the trigger ball. So placing the trigger ball down on the floor, we're going to start with the right foot and just stimulate the right foot softly, just as we did with the hands. We're just softly stimulating that foot with light pressure all around the sole of the foot. Nice and steady. Then you can start to find a little point and press in. Oh, that's so nice. And then move that around. Massaging kind of from the base all the way through. Remember, 33 joints in your feet. Most of them are going to be your toes, aren't they? So get the fascia ball into the toes as well. Move it around. Lovely. Really like this feeling of kind of pressing, especially there's lots of nerve endings in your feet. Just as in with our hands, we've got lots of sensation in our feet and we forget to really observe that and use it. Good, we're going to come back to just stimulating the foot again. So just nice little circles, movements up and back, just gentle stimulation of the foot. Good. And then we'll swap and do the other foot. So gentle stimulation. So if you're working with a towel, you can do both at the same time, kind of padding up and down. Gently rocking around. Remember to go to the edges, the heel, the toes. And then again, finding a point and just pressing in and releasing. You can hold for as long as you'd like in these positions, pressing in for as long as you need to, or you can keep moving from one point to the next. If you find a really nice little bit and you're like, oh yeah, you can stay there. Good. Just finding some lovely little areas to work into. Couple more. And then back to just gentle stimulation. just nice and steady, rolling around. Remember the toes, remember the heels. I actually keep my trigger ball underneath my sink because it's the one place I know that when I'm brushing my teeth and washing my face, I'm there for long enough to do this, so I can do it every day. You might find somewhere like that in your, like maybe when you're boiling the kettle or you're cooking, you might want to put your trigger ball somewhere that you know you can do this. You can do it on a tennis ball as well, and especially if you've got dogs, you might find a dog toy somewhere. Okay, so we're going to then just push our fascia ball off to the side because we don't need it for now. And we're going to come to the top of the mat, close towards our stool or chair. Hands can come to the hips or the waist so they can dangle down by the sides. We're going to start working on one side and then we'll do the whole thing again on the second side. So we're going to circulate the right ankle by moving the heel in a lovely circle. So think of the circling coming from the heel. So we'll lift up the right heel, circle one direction, doesn't matter which one, but avoiding lifting the ball of the foot off the ground. It's harder than it looks or seems. And we'll do 3 one direction. So lift the heel, circle, and release. Trying to keep the ball of the foot grounded. Going back the opposite direction. Think about the heel creating the circle. It's really hard for me to go back the other way. Good, one more. And then landing that right foot down into the earth, place the left foot onto your stool or chair. So we're going to elevate up onto the right heel and then slowly melt down for 3, 2, 1. Lift up for 1, 2, lower down for 3, 2, 1. Lift up for 1, 2, lower down for 3, 2, 1. Keep going. Try not to lean into the left foot. The weight is in the right leg. The left foot's just there to A, get it out of the way, and B, to give us a little bit of support. Now, if you don't want the support, you knew it was coming, then we can lift up the left leg without the chair and try again. 1, 2, slow it down for 3, 2, 1. Hello, calf muscles. 1, 2, lower for 3, 2, 1. Let it be a challenge. Lift for 1, 2, lower for 3, 2. That one was rubbish on my side. Good, keep going. Have a play. The challenge is in the fact that we can't really do it perfectly. That's where we learn and grow. One more. Good, now releasing the left foot back, hands come to the earth. And we can either take this to 3-legged downward facing dog and kick that right leg up and give it a shake. You can circle the ankle, move the leg. It's just been using a lot of effort, so just free it a little bit. You can also do this from tabletop position if you really don't want to be in that kind of 3-legged down dog today. Just get a little bit of movement going into the foot and the ankle and the leg. Then we'll step the right foot forward, coming into this quite short lunge position. So your left hip is over your left knee. And we're going to want to take our strap. Now we can do this in 2 ways. So we're going to show you both ways. First way is obviously with the strap. Second way is using the hand. Now just have a little play with bringing your knee over your toes. Your knee is designed to go over your toes. And when yoga teachers, and I hear it a lot, kind of tell you off for bringing your knee over your toes, this is what your knee is designed to do. I'm going to show you something. When you sit down on a chair, your knee goes over your toes. When you stand up from a chair, your knee goes over your toes. When you walk, your knee is designed to go over your toes. And when you run as well. So we want to create this mobility in the ankle. Now, our Achilles tendon, often it's like, oh, my Achilles tendon is really tight. But you'll be surprised, the Achilles tendon is meant to be kind of tight. It's not meant to be like loose and floppy. It's a tendon as well. What might often is the problem for people is actually the talus bone isn't sliding back enough to give you enough ankle range of motion. So we're going to try and aid the talus bone to slide back so we get a little bit more mobility in our ankle joint. So taking our strap, now you can see the crease when you come forward of where your ankle joint is, and we can slide that strap into the crease, tightly and then pull the hands back and plug the fists into the floor. Now, we then want to slide forward as we're pushing back. So as we lunge forward, we're pulling the strap back. And this can feel quite difficult to do it with your hands, as you've got to put a bit of effort in. You can always tie your strap to either a chair leg or something strong and stable and do it that way, or you can put a weight behind it. It's also really nice done with a strappy band, this. I often use this with a strappy kind of stretchy band. The second variation you can do this is by using your hand. So the U shape between your thumb, or the V shape, and your index finger. We place the left hand into the right crease, feel the ankle joint, and then as we lean forward, we push into that joint and come back. So it's a bit more effort from your body, push and back. I really like doing this before I go running, as it helps loosen the joint. Again, remember, we need to have mobility in our feet when we run, not just solid feet. It's going to aid the rest of our running journey if we actually encourage movement in our feet. One more. Lovely. Now, just for a tester, we're going to come all the way up into a high lunge, and we can kind of lean forward and back. And we can get that knee to go over the toes. If your knee is definitely not feeling it today, just be less intense. If you're kind of working with discomfort in your knee, just go less far. Remember, actually, it's important we get ankle range of motion. Good. Now we're going to come up to the top of the mat. We're going to do another one for the right ankle joint, which I really love, which is standing. So the left heel is going to place into that crease of the ankle. So that little point, you can feel it. That little point, if you use your fingers, there's a little kind of gap between the ligaments, the tendons. We're going to place the heel into that area, and we're going to push down on that left foot as we try and lift the right heel up. So it's like a push-pull, 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 trying to lift the foot off the floor, but then that left foot is pushing down. Push-pull, release, push-pull, release. Push, pull, release. One more, push, pull, release. And then just a little tester, come into a chair position. And you might notice my right knee just wants to come a lot further forward. I can't go any further in my left leg. So you can feel that lovely freeness, is that a word, the freeness, in your right ankle. Good, then we're going to just roll onto the tops of the toes. Oh yeah. So crunchy, crunch the toes round. Feels great. I think it feels great. You get a little crack in your toes. Lucky you. Crick, crack, crick, crack. Good. And then step back with the left leg and just free up the right ankle. So you can just feel the right ankle moving. Should feel quite nice. Mine's cracking a little bit. So click, 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 click. Good. Wonderful. And then come back to the top of the mat. Now we're going to take our strap and we're going to lengthen it out long. And we're going to take our blanket or towel, whatever we might have, and we're going to open up that flat. Now, if you know that you have an issue with gripping with your feet, you might want, it's not cheating, it's just helping, to create a little bit of a crease in your towel so you've got something to grip. Now, firstly with our feet, what we're going to do is practice just pulling, like flat toes, pulling in like we would with our fingers. If we were trying to catch a butterfly, we would gently create a little space. We wouldn't scrunch up our fists with our fingers. We'd create a gap between our hands, yeah? So try and do that with your foot. Catch a butterfly underneath your foot. Then we're going to scrunch up the toes and see if we can pick up our towel. If you're like me and you've got a really soft towel, it makes it even harder. Once you've picked it up, give it a little wiggle and then release it back down and we can go again. Pull, long toes first, scrunch them up, lift up and release. Now if you want to practice with your strap as well, you can. Same thing applies. Lengthen, pick up, lift and release. So we're using our toes, like we would our fingers. Scrunching, lifting, releasing. Just have a little play with it. You'll feel the muscles of your feet start to activate. And as we're doing this standing, we're also strengthening the standing leg. It's like a cheeky balance. If you've got the towel and you want to play with moving it around, keeping hold of it like a little warrior 3 game, you can. Have a little play here. Good. And then release your towel. Right foot's going to come forward. Now we can use this chair and place the right foot onto the chair and get a nice stretch here and lean forward. It's lovely. You can also do this on the ground and lean forward and get a nice stretch at the back of the leg. We're going to spread out the toes and bring each finger in between each toe. And then if you want to, you can press a bit into the floor, adding a bit of pressure. This feels so nice on your toes. Get them spread wide. We're very cruel with women's feet, not just women, but I feel more so with women's feet, that they have to be really skinny. They're not allowed to be wide and they're not allowed to be big. If you've got big, wide feet, you're probably going to have much more chance of running better, walking better. Well done. Yeah, great. Tiny feet, tiny skinny feet, not so good. You might end up having lots of ankle, knee, hip problems. You never know. So let's be nice to our feet. Let them be as wide and as big as they want to be. So we have much more surface that we can cover with the feet, so we're more stable. So let's celebrate bigger feet. No offense if you've got small feet. We can make our smaller feet bigger. Good, and then releasing the toes. Coming back to stand up nice and tall. And just for a moment, notice how one foot feels comparatively to the other. Is there a difference? I know for me there's a huge difference all the way through from the big toes, the little toes, to the heel, to the ankle, and even up into my knee. Okay, we're going to go take this on the other side. So hands can come to the waist, the hips. First movement is our ankle rotation. So we're lifting up the left heel, trying to keep the ball of the foot down and making a circle with the right heel, up, round and down. So we're playing with this movement, up, round and down. Just having a little bit of an exploration. Up, round and down. 3 on one side and then go back the other direction. Trying to make that circle with the heel without lifting the ball of the foot off the floor. And that's a bit I find really difficult. Good. One more. Lovely. And then we'll release the left foot into the floor. Right foot comes up onto the chair. Now remember, we're not leaning into the right foot. We're going to lift up for 1, 2 with the left heel and lower down for 3, 2, 1. Lift up for 1, 2, lower down for 3, 2, 1. Lift up for 1, 2, lower down for 3, 2, 1. Keep going. Now, if you find this super easy and you want the extra challenge, I can feel my calf muscle going all high. You've already run today, Kate. Why are we doing more? You can do this without the foot on the chair. 1, 2, lower down for 3. No, keep trying. Don't give up. That's how we get better. We practice. Good. Keep going. Lift up. The imbalancing is how we're learning to balance. Lower for 3. Trying to get that 3. Good. One more. And then we'll step the right foot back, hands to the ground, and we can come into 3-legged downward facing dog and shake out the leg, ankle, or we can stay in tabletop if that feels better, moving it around, just getting rid of a little bit of that energy or tension that we've built up in the foot. Good, we'll step the left foot forward into that short lunge. So a nice short lunge here. And just come forward and back and just check your ankle mobility range. My left ankle is much stiffer than my right. I don't really know why, but it is. So we're just allowing a little bit of range of motion into the ankle just to see what's there. Now we've got those 2 ways. We can do the strap, so wrapping the strap around the crease of the ankle joint, pinning the hands back and then coming forward. So we're pulling the strap back as we come into the lunge. Or we can use the hands, so space between the thumb and the index finger, hooks into that crease of the ankle. And again, we lean forward as we push back. A little bit more effort might be required from your body to get that push back. It feels really good. Lovely. Really trying to push back. It's a lot stronger than you might think it is, so give it a good bit of a welly. Lovely. Good. And then we'll come all the way back up to a nice high lunge. Bit of movement here. Here in the foot. If I can find my balance. And then we'll stand up to the top of the mat. We're going to come and stand. Right heel is going to come into that space between the ankle crease. So where you bend the ankle, you can palpate it with your fingers, a little bit of space. We're going to press the heel into that space and push down as we're trying to lift the heel up. So it's like a push down and a lift at the same time. We're not elevating the left heel because it's not allowed to come off the floor because the right foot's like, no, you must not lift up. So it's push, lift, push, lift. And you can feel the space being created there. It can feel really nice just to open up that space. Good, couple more. And then release and come into that lovely chair and just notice, oh yeah, if there's a little bit of a difference. Now your right side might still be open. My left side is still a little bit tight comparatively to my right because my right ankle is much more open, but it feels a bit more spacious than it did before, which feels lovely. So nice to have that lovely little bit of kind of space opening out. Good, so we're going to take the right foot back and we can just play with moving that ankle up and down, heel up and down, just feeling a bit of freedom in the ankle area, which feels quite nice. Okay, we'll set to the top of the mat again and roll over, crunching the tops of the toes. Oh, big crunchy. Good. Just getting the toes to stretch out. Now we can then lie out our towel and our blanket or our strap and practice our scrunching. So remember with our scrunching, we're going to try and pull everything in first. So catch the butterfly first. So it's a pull, pulling in, then we can scrunch up the toes. Now if you need a bit of a crease in your towel, do. So you don't feel too disheartened that you can't lift it off the floor. This is great exercise for bunions. If you're working with bunions, this is brilliant. And I like doing this with my laundry, picking up the laundry and throwing it in the laundry bin. So you can use your feet. It's not lazy, because there's just quite a lot of effort going on here, isn't there? But it means you don't have to bend down, and it's exercising your feet in everyday life. Good. If you want to then practice with the strap, have a go with the strap. Scrunch, lift. Use your dexterous toes. You can even play with a bit of balancing. So you'll not be getting you putting a spoon to your mouth with your foot. I'm joking, I won't. Well, you know, it can be done. Good. Lifting and releasing. And then just move out the toes. We're going to step the foot forward onto the chair, or we can leave it on the ground and stretch it out. Stretch out the hamstring, the calf muscle, and then individual fingers. Little finger goes in between little toe and fourth toe, and then go all the way through your toes. Fingers interlace with toes. And we might want to step forward to bring a bit of pressure in and back. And if you're doing this on the chair, you can do the same thing. Bring some pressure in and back. Getting those toes nice and wide. And if you're like, I can't get all my fingers in the space between my toes, just do as best you can. You might want to skip out the middle one. The best ones I want you to do is big toe and little toe. So really separate those out. It feels so nice. Really nice to get that lovely opening in your feet. Good. And then we will release. Bring the foot back down to the floor and just notice how the feet feel. So we're going to do another little exercise which we can do standing or sitting on our stool. we're going to take our strap. I'm going to show you sitting first. So place the strap into the ball of the right foot and extend it away. It doesn't have to be this high. We're going to practice flointing. Now, flointing is between pointing and flexing. So we push the ball of the foot away as if we're wearing a heel. And then we're going to point the toes away as much as we can, lengthening our toes rather than crunching them up. We're pulling back on the strap, and then we're going to flex the toes into that floint again, slowly create the flex, and then release. Now we can do this standing because it's going to be harder for our balance, which is great practice for balancing. So into the ball of the foot, extending, flointing, so we push the ball of the foot away. We then point the toes as long as they can go without creating the strap to move. Floint back with the toes and come back to the flexion. Do a couple more. Flointing, extending the toes up, flex. Foot should be like, wow, it's hard work, right? Because you've got the resistance of the strap. Flointing, this is great with a stretchy band. Pointing, flointing, flex, and release. We'll swap sides. Maybe you can stay seated or standing. Try and have that resistance with the strap. So floint, come to a bit of a point with the toes, floint, flex, floint, point, floint, flex. Couple more. Floint, point, floint, flex. I don't think floint is like a particularly anatomical term. It's kind of a made-up yoga term, but it works. Good, and then release. Move the ankles, move the feet, you might want to roll over the toes. Oh, I've got a nice crack in my toes. Lovely. And then we can come and sit onto our chair, stool, just for comfort really. And we're going to give our feet a little bit of love, a little bit of massage love. So you might just want to add a bit of pressure in, gripping the toes, squeeze the ankles, the calves, your tibialis anterior, this muscle that runs up the outer edge of the shin. That often gets quite sore from flexing all the time, so you can give that a bit of a palpate. You can go with the inner edge of the shin, which also feels quite tender quite a lot of the time. And then we're going to just start to work with just moving the skin and the underneath kind of layers on the top part of the foot. So it should be able to kind of move around. It should feel a bit crunchy, a little bit slidey. It feels quite nice to give the top of the foot a little bit of movement. Good. And then we're going to get the big toe and second toe and just kind of wiggle them apart. So give them a wiggle. Second toe and third toe, wiggle them apart. Then keep going. And to the last little ones. Now that space, just by the big toe on the inside, you can feel a ridge all the way down towards the kind of heel area. And if you start to massage this little ridge, it might feel quite tender. There's little points where you can feel muscle attachments. Just massaging all the way down here, it's lovely. And when we get to the kind of point here in the center of the ankle, this is an acupressure point. It's good for kind of the uterus, a point that you're often told to push in labor, but not great if you don't want to give birth. Great for period pain as well. And it should be quite tender if you press that. It's like, oh, obviously this is only for women, that it's a point for the uterus. Good. And then the sole of the foot. Give the sole of your foot a little bit of a press. You'll find little spots you're like, oh yeah. Or other areas that don't really bother you. Just use your thumbs, or you can use your knuckles, your fists. Maybe just pressing around the back of the ankle into the Achilles tendon. And then swap. Foot goes down, we'll go to the other one. Just squeeze the leg, calf muscles, ankle, heel, foot. Remember the tibia Anterior tibialis, oh, that was hard then for my brain. The outer edge, maybe pressing the inner edge of the shin. And coming to the top of the foot and just sliding the fingers across and back. So you should feel the crunchiness. Oh, yeah. I love massaging feet. It feels so nice, especially after all that exercise that you've done for your feet. It's like giving them a bit of a reward. Getting the toes, giving them a good separation. So big toe, little toe, wiggle back and forward. Second toe, third toe, wiggle back and forward. And again, just keep moving through the toes. And again, little one. And then finding that ridge again on the inside of the foot. You'll feel the ridge from the big toe all the way up. It's like a little rainbow, and you can just massage that. This is technically a lovely area to press, and we, in Thai massage, we think of as being related to the spine. So when you press into this area, it might correlate to tension you're holding in the spine. You don't have to believe that, or you don't have to sense into that. Then when we come to the point, remember it's a nice little point for the uterus. You can press into that. It might feel quite painful. Might feel fine. You'll know when you're there, because you'll be like, oh yeah. And then massage the sole of the foot. Use your thumbs, dig into areas that might feel really nice. You might find some little areas that feel relaxing to press, some that feel tender, some that might feel quite intense. Lovely. Good, and then release the foot. And just take a moment to feel your feet. They feel glorious, don't they? So we're going to bring our stool back to the top of the mat. Well, it's because I've moved it. You might not have moved it. We're going to come onto the ground. And you may want to take your towel, you might want to wrap the feet up. So placing the feet up onto your chair or your stool, maybe wrap them up if that feels nice, keep them warm. And then adding a little bit of touch in here. So I like to wrap them up with something just so they feel kind of connected. And then we'll lie back down and getting a bit of elevation for our feet. So think about when we think of elevating our legs, we're like, yeah, it takes pressure off the knees, the ankles. Remember I said there's 33 joints in each foot. 33 joints. So we're taking the pressure off those joints. And we're just going to rest here for a good few minutes, allowing our feet to feel light, at ease, connected to softness, not having to do anything for a little bit of time. Maybe just breathing slowly, allowing your body to rest. You may want to stay connected to the sensations that are being experienced. Or just let your mind drift off. Nice and slowly, reconnect back to the feet. Maybe give them a little bit of a wiggle. Just checking they're still there. And if they're wrapped in a blanket or a towel, you might just want to open up that with your feet and then slowly bring your feet back down to the earth. So you're pressing your feet softly down into the floor. Back to kind of where we started, feeling the feet just softly anchored into the earth. Now we're going to come out of this pose through a squat. Now, squatting is so good for our ankles so that we can sit, run, walk, and we forget that actually a lot of the time people have difficulty squatting, not because of the hips, but because of the ankles. And you can still squat if your knees can't bend. So make our way up slowly. Now, if you have the flexibility in the knees and in the hips, you can simply grab hold of your chair and come through this nice squat, trying to keep your heels grounded. Now, if you need a little bit more space for your knees, just lift the bum up a little bit, but still bring the weight down through your feet, and you can grab hold of your chair. Now, try and keep the heels glued down to the floor, just so that you can feel where the ankle stretch is. And if you want to kind of rock forward and back a little bit, you can. Notice what's going on in the ankle. If you can't bring the heels to the floor and you have to lift the heels up, just note that. Or how can you bring the heels down to the floor? Maybe one at a time. Just notice what happens. Where do you have to go in order to feel that stretch in your ankle? Good, taking in the breath here. So we've lost a lot of this ability to squat, not necessarily just because of the hips, but actually because of tight ankles. Now we're going to come up nice and slowly all the way up to standing. Shake out the feet, give them a good old wiggle. Release. And we're going to close our practice standing. So standing on the feet, take as wide a stance as you need to feel stable. Inhale, we'll lift the arms up, take a lovely big stretch. The palms will close together and the hands will draw down to the heart center. As you bow your head forward, thanking yourself for the ability to feel with your feet, to free them from shoes, and to allow them to experience the world around us. Namaste.